Yo, what up, basketball world? It's the one and only legend of winning, aka Low, and we're here with my playoff preview. I recorded this video already. I wasn't able to get it out in time, but I do believe it's still worthy of putting out because we're only one game into each series, and my predictions really haven't changed. But before we get into the video, just quickly, if you want to watch live playoff games with me, I stream the playoff games almost every single night on playback.tv. Link in the description. Go check me out. But with that out of the way, let's get into this because it's going to be a very long video. First up, Eastern Conference, we have the Milwaukee Bucks versus the Miami Heat. I have the Bucks in 6. Originally, I had them in 5, but now in 6, largely because of the Giannis injury. He drove really hard in the basket in Game 1. Kevin Love came to set a charge. He fell even harder on his back, and now he has a back contusion. He missed the rest of Game 1. More than likely, he's going to miss Game 2, which potentially could hurt them. However, the reason why I saw the Bucks winning, even though Miami was able to steal Game 1, is because A, the Bucks have actually still looked really sound defensively and offensively in games in which Giannis has missed this season, and he also had some playoff resiliency while Giannis is out as well. In the 2021 run, Giannis missed some games in the conference finals, and they still look great. I think this team is slightly better than what they were that year as well, especially defensively, and with Chris Middleton coming back, it will be very interesting to see what he's going to look like in those games or game that Giannis is absent. The other reason why is because Tyler Hero broke his hand in Game 1, so now a Miami Heat offense that was already questionable is going to become even more stagnant at times, and they definitely cannot just overly rely on Jimmy Butler to carry them throughout a series going up against an elite level defensive team like the Milwaukee Bucks. The biggest takeaway in this series, like I said before, is what is Chris Middleton going to look like in the games in which Giannis is not available, and also what is Giannis going to look like when he does come back, not only because you want to see what he looks like from a health standpoint, but also it was very concerning for me in Game 1 when Giannis is out there performing, and for whatever reason, bro, Coach Bud and the Bucks, bro, the coaching staff is not preparing this team to have the playoff counters that are necessary, which is why they were struggling to beat Miami even before Giannis got hurt. They were actually losing that game, so it will be very interesting to see what Giannis looks like for a team that is tend to have his number over the past 2 to 3 years. Up next, we have Knicks and Cavs. It's easily going to be one of the more interesting series in the Eastern Conference in the first round. The reason for this is because I don't believe there is one team that has an overwhelming advantage. I personally want to lean more to Cleveland's side in 6 games. The reason for this is because a Knicks team that is heavily reliant at times on Julius Randle's excellence to shot create and play make for everyone else may struggle at times because you're going up against such a defensive-oriented front court in Evan Mobley and Jared Allen. The biggest question mark, though, for the Cavs in the entire series is offensively, what are you going to get out of your front court? And also coming off the bench, what are you going to get as well? In the first game, Donovan Mitchell was brilliant, especially down the stretch, but there's only so much that he can do offensively. Some other players are going to have to step up, especially if this team wants to be able to compete with an offense that is a bit more well-rounded out in New York. Shout out to Jalen Brunson as well. He's also another name that's going to be very interesting in the series to figure out how battle-tested is Jalen Brunson moving forward, as well as Julius Randle when you're matching up against a defensive-oriented team. However, once more, I'm still going to lean Cleveland, but honestly, I can see one way or another. It doesn't really matter to me. Then on the other side of the bracket, we have the Philadelphia 76ers and the Brooklyn Nets. I think that Philly is probably going to walk away in this in 5 games. The only reason why I don't say it's a sweep is because there's times where the Sixers, they tend to do a little bit of trolling. You know, they don't take it serious all the time. And because of that, I can see them tricking off a game because, you know, they just don't care. But the Nets, they don't really have the personnel. It's a bunch of miscellaneous pieces thrown together who are still living off of the high of what Kevin Durant was able to provide to this team before he left. And because of that, I just don't see how they can compete with Joel Embiid, let alone all the other pieces. The biggest takeaway from this series, though, is what exactly does James Harden look like? Because I do see James Harden, he struggled a little bit towards the tail end of the regular season. I don't know if he's 100% healthy. And so I want to gauge what Harden looks like from a scoring perspective and also how he can initiate offense and put a lot of pressure on opposing team defenses, as well as, is Mikal Bridges real? Then we have the Boston Celtics and the Atlanta Hawks. Celtics in 4. I think this is going to be a sweep. I don't see how the Hawks have any ability to beat them in any game at all. You have a Hawks team that's heavily oriented off of guard play, and now you're talking about a Boston Celtics team that have like 2 of the top 3 or 5 defensive guards in the NBA with Derek White and Marcus Smart, as well as what they do defensively in terms of the Hawks overly depend on Clint Capella's excellence, but Clint Capella is going to be stretched out to the 3-point line all series long. So yeah, I just don't see. I don't see how the Hawks can pull off a game. Moving on to the second round, Bucks against the Cavaliers, or even Bucks against the Knicks. I'm gonna go with the Bucks pretty convincingly in this series, either 5 or 6 games. I'm gonna lean more 5. The reason for this is once more is because we're talking about a Cavs team that is incomplete offensively in the front court against a defensive-oriented Bucks team. Their best defensive players are in the front court. So having Giannis and Brook Lopez being able to help off a little bit more than they normally do off of non-offensive threats is just going to make Donovan Mitchell's job much more difficult than it already will be, and he will have his hand filled trying to score on Jrue Holiday. I don't see how the Cavs last at all, and a lot of things that I just stated as well would also be applicable to the Knicks if they make it also. So I have the Bucks winning in 5 in that series. The biggest takeaway is, once again, what does Giannis look like against a defensive-oriented front court, Jared Allen and Evan Mobley? Because once more, I just need to see more counters for Giannis for a deep postseason run before I'm completely convinced that this Bucks team can go all the way. Then on the other side of the bracket, we have the Sixers versus the Boston Celtics. This will be easily the most interesting series of the entire Eastern Conference, in my opinion. Philly team that's trying to get over the hump, finally trying to get to the conference finals against a Boston Celtics team that is trying to make another trip to the NBA finals and potentially submit themselves. I have the Celtics winning in 6 in this series, maybe even 7. The biggest reason for this is because I do not think James Harden is 100% healthy. They're going to need a little bit more initiation from some of their perimeter-oriented players. Once more, a Celtics team that has 2 of the top 5 defensive guards in Marcus Smart and Derek White going up against James Harden and Tyrese Maxey. Being able to cut that water off, stop the flow of a lot of playmaking that happens out in Philly will be very beneficial. And then on the other side of the floor, for the Sixers, they just don't have the perimeter presence to defend Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. They just don't have it, and I think they're going to have a great series. Joel Embiid will be stretched to the 3-point line, and quiet as kept, Joel Embiid does a really bad job at defending in space, and that's what he's going to have to do. Al Horford has been sensational all year long with spacing out the floor, so it's going to be very troubling for them. Doc Rivers also more than likely will get out coached as he normally does. So yeah, I have Celtics in 6. And then finally, we have the Boston Celtics versus the Milwaukee Bucks, the revenge tour, as you will. And this is going to be a very interesting series. However, I'm going to lean Bucks in 7. I think this is going to be another 7-game series. With Middleton back, he's going to have 2 playoff series under his belt to kind of get the flow of things. Hopefully, offensively, he's a bit more dynamic than what the Bucks had last year. Also, Milwaukee was able to push this series to 7 games last year without him. I do believe when he's back, it's going to be a little bit easier for Giannis and company to be a bit more open with their scoring. More importantly, I just feel like what I see from Giannis in this series should be a bit more capable in his ability to score than in the previous series. Hopefully, he becomes a little bit more routine with his post-ups, a little bit more routine with his mid-range shooting as well. And so I do believe that Giannis and company will be able to take over the series. However, I think this is going to be a really good series. It can really go either way. I'm just going to lean more so with Giannis, great defense, and quite frankly, I think Middleton will be the difference maker in this series, and that obviously is the biggest takeaway. So we got the Milwaukee Bucks in the finals. Now, moving on to the West, we have the Denver Nuggets and the Minnesota Timberwolves. Nuggets in 4. Bro, there's so many people, especially on the timeline, who just don't believe in the Nuggets. I just don't understand it. I look at this Timberwolves team, they blow leads, they're not serious. I just can't, I cannot take that Timberwolves team serious whatsoever. Yeah, Nuggets in 4. We have the Phoenix Suns and the Los Angeles Clippers. This might be the surprise, and no, I'm not saying this because of game 1. I have the Clippers winning the series. Now, the reason for this is because I'm not buying into this, like, I don't know what this is, this Kevin Durant propaganda, like, oh, KD's on the team, so he's supposed to win. It's like, bro, God damn, like, why do y'all believe KD is LeBron? Like, I don't understand this. This Phoenix team, they lack in depth, they lack in defense, they lack in continuity. Those are all things that have been consistent staples to making deep postseason runs, and you're going up against a really well-rounded defensive-oriented team with the Clippers, a team that, in my humble opinion, I know everybody's going crazy because of the shooting splits from KD, but I think Kawhi Leonard has just been playing better over the past, like, 20 games of basketball than Durant was, and in game 1, even though I think it was fairly close, the defense that we saw from Kawhi was a difference maker. It will be interesting to see how much Kawhi can hold up throughout the entire series. Also, it will be very interesting to see what Russell Westbrook is able to provide to this team, because he was, I mean, let's just call a spade a spade. He was a negative for like 40 minutes of action. In the last like 6 to 8 minutes of the game, he was great in game 1. But for the most part, he was a negative, 3 for 19, historically bad shooting performance. But the Suns, they just don't have enough. If you think that they're supposed to win because KD's on the roster, or you think they're supposed to win because the duo of KD and Booker will be enough, I just completely disagree. The Clippers, even without Paul George, they have so many different ways they can beat you. They can get easy points inside with Zubac. Great transition play when Russ is pushing it. 3-point shooting, dynamic play from Kawhi Leonard on both sides of the floor. I think it's a lot for the Clippers, and that's even without PG. If he was playing, bro, I think it would be done in like 5. Moving on to the other side of the bracket, Kings and Warriors, another great series. I personally have the Warriors in 6. Game 1 is already going to tell us that this is going to be the series that everybody's been hoping for, that everybody wants to see. A great offensive-oriented back and forth from 2 really talented teams. I do believe, however, the lack of defensive presence from the Kings will inevitably be their demise. And also, from what we gathered in game 1, it's going to be really hard for me to believe that Malik Monk is going to continue to perform at that level. Also, Andrew Wiggins is going to continue to get better. He's going to dust off some of that rust. And more importantly, Domantas Sabonis, will he continue to struggle against Kevon Looney and Draymond Green? Personally, I believe so. I don't think, however, Kevin Huerter is going to shoot that poorly as well. When he's knocking down his shots, it spaces out the floor even more, and it makes defenses make tough decisions on switching. And that's where Sabonis can kind of get a lot of what he normally gets off, because when they do switch, there's only so many players that's on the floor. Sabonis should be able to kill the mismatch if they do pull off the switch off the dribble handoff. Nevertheless, though, the lack of defense from the Kings will hurt them, and that's the reason why I think I have the Warriors in 6. But still, a really great series. Really, really great series. And then finally, we have the Grizzlies and Lakers. I have the Lakers winning in 5 or 6 games. I said this before the series even began, and it was further cemented after game 1, not only because, as many of us know, Ja Morant broke his hand, or I don't know if he broke his hand technically, but he had a hand injury. He is ruled out for game 2. It's going to make it even more difficult for a Grizzlies offense that is very questionable in the half court. It's going to make them struggle even further. Shout out to Dillon Brooks. Dillon Brooks had a Laker jersey on in game 1, boy. He was playing for the Lakers. It was pretty nasty. But also shout out to Triple J as well. He was a sensational in game 1. Great on both sides of the floor. Put up really solid numbers offensively against the Lakers. But I just think the Lakers are just way too talented. They have way too many pieces to beat you. Shout out to Austin Reeves. He came alive in the 4th quarter. Shout out to Anthony Davis, was the best player on the floor. I don't want to say from start to finish, but it was really great. And LeBron came alive as time continued to progress. But I will say this, the biggest X factor for the Lakers will be, well, I guess a couple things. Does LeBron look like LeBron of old, or is this just a new version of LeBron that we have to just get accustomed to? Because that's definitely going to be interesting. But being more importantly, how can Vanderbilt stay on the floor without being played off, because of he can quickly turn into a negative offensively? And now that Ja Morant isn't going to be playing in game 2, potentially will be hampered. Not even potentially, he will be hampered for the remainder of the series. You know, Vando's impact won't be felt as much, so it's not going to be important to play him. But still, I do wonder what Vando's going to look like in a lot of these series when he can be a flat out negative offensively. Now, moving on to the second round, Nuggets versus Clippers. And quite frankly, what I'm about to say next holds true for Nuggets versus Suns. Nuggets should win in like 6 games, maybe even 5, depending on if Paul George will be available. The reason why I say this is the same reason why they continue to lose to the Nuggets over and over and over again. Bro, the Clippers do not have the personnel to stop the 2-man game between Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic. They just don't have it. Jokic has a really great job of picking apart that defense. He does a really great job of reading double teams. He does a really great job of being patient and being able to pick apart players in the post. And you're talking about a team that went out to get Mason Plumlee to just try to throw another body at him, and that's just not going to be enough. Zubac and Plumlee will be dog food for Jokic. I expect him to have a great game. And then also when it comes to Jamal Murray, Kawhi Leonard's probably going to have to expend a little bit more energy when it comes to a point of attack, which could potentially harm what he's going to do on the offensive side of the floor. But all in all, I think Jokic is going to be way too much. Kawhi Leonard and a potential Paul George sighting towards the tail end of the series maybe be able to shake things up a little bit and push it to a game 7. But I think the longer the series goes, the less potent Kawhi is offensively, which will then impact what this team was going to be able to do. What if Jokic is not going to be able to be impactful defensively? It doesn't really matter, because the Clippers are a team that they don't put a lot of pressure on the rim. They settle for jump shots. That is a perfect type of game for Jokic to stay out there and still be impactful defensively. Not really concerned about it whatsoever. The other side of the bracket, we have the Warriors versus the Lakers. Yikes. Man, I'm gonna go Warriors in 6. There's a lot of things to gather from this series. The Lakers, they do a couple things that are really beneficial for them in the series, like there's height. size, rebounding, something that the Warriors just don't have an answer for. As gritty, as grindy as Kevin Looney and Draymond want to get, there's only so much you can do when you have Vando, LeBron, and Anthony Davis all getting to the basket at will and just getting at the rim. The problem though is that the Lakers, bro, the things that they struggle with, bro, the Warriors just excel in, bro. Like the Lakers are really bad at defending guard play, really bad at shifting their defense left and right without being bad on closeouts. Also, the Lakers are really bad at finding open players when the defense is kind of hiding where the open man is at. LeBron, of course, is really great at that, but Anthony Davis has struggled with that mightily over the past 2 to 3 years, and I think he's going to continue to struggle with that. And also, I just think that AD, unless he's playing at like a top 5 level, which he could, I just don't see how AD is going to have enough of a presence in this series. It could change if AD is extremely dominant, but if not, I think the Warriors are going to walk out of this series in 6, which then brings us to Warriors and Nuggets. I have the Nuggets in 6 games, but honestly, this is the worst nightmare for the Nuggets if the Warriors are able to make it this deep, because they do everything well. They put a lot of pressure on Jokic defensively. It's going to be really, really hard. And I do believe the Warriors are going to be able to take advantage of this. There's just no other way around it, regardless of how much they want to hide Jokic, regardless of how they want to play defense, which they really do a really good job at playing defense with Jokic from time to time. But, I mean, you're dealing with Curry, Jordan Poole, Klay Thompson, too much three-point shooting, too much player movement for Jokic to keep up with an entire 7-game series. The other problem, though, is on the other side of the floor. I don't think Draymond and Kevin Looney will be enough to deal with Jokic. That's a big body. That's a very serious problem. It's going to be very interesting back and forth. The biggest takeaway I want to get from this series is, what does Jokic help look like offensively? Jamal Murray's going to have a tall task to score in Dante DiVincenzo and GP. Also, MPJ is going to have to give you quality minutes against Andrew Wiggins. And just as a unit collectively, this team cannot fall off the face of the earth just because Jokic is having a bad quarter or a bad half or even a bad game, especially when he comes off the floor, because boy, that definitely ruins things. And then on the other side, when it comes to the Warriors, bro, Jordan Poole, he's going to have to play consistent. There's way too many times where it just feels like Curry's the only one who can just generate offense for this team, and that's very problematic. And the same thing happens with the Warriors when Curry goes on the floor. What is this team going to be able to produce? If Jordan Poole can step to the plate, take on the challenge, be solid defensively while generating quality offense, then the Warriors could actually pull this off and be back into the NBA Finals. But if not, which I don't think is going to happen, especially because this team has not been disciplined down the stretch of games all year long. They also have been really bad away. All of those things kind of align with the Nuggets. However, I'm going to say this. Regardless of who comes out of the West, bro, they don't stand a chance with these Eastern Conference teams. I think both Boston and Milwaukee will win the finals. I think the finals goes through the Eastern Conference. So regardless if it's the Nuggets or the Warriors, if they matching up with the Bucks, bro, I think the Bucks can beat both of those teams in like 5 games, 5 or 6 games. I think Giannis is going to have a field day. Okay, I think Giannis will have a field day against those teams. I also think that even though Brook Lopez did not have that favorable of a matchup last time that the Nuggets and Bucks matched up with one another in the regular season, if there's any team who has the personnel to slow down Jokic, it's the Bucks. The Bucks have bodies they can throw at Jokic. They can really slow down what the Nuggets can do offensively. It's the Bucks. If there's any team who will put constant pressure on the rim to really challenge that questionable Jokic defense, not even really questionable, the bad Jokic defense, it's the Bucks. I think the Bucks are going to handle the Nuggets. I think the Bucks are going to handle the Warriors. Curry going to have to generate constant offense over and over and over again against Jrue Holiday. I think he's going to have a favorable matchup, but a bad game or two will be the difference maker in that series. And I think Giannis is going to have a field day against Kevin Looney and Draymond Green. I truly do. If the Bucks make it to the finals, bro, I think they're going to win. But yo, those are my thoughts. I have the Bucks winning the NBA Finals in 5 games, 5 or 6 games. Giannis being crowned champion. And we're going to have a real conversation when it comes to Giannis. But yo, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Those are my playoff predictions. Hopefully I see you on the stream. And until next time, I'll see you all later. Peace.